Same questions?
We're going to get different people.
Of course. Sandra Cattell Newhall. Oh, Sandra Cattell Newhall. Senator, same question. What positions do you hold on which issues that you believe will encourage a Democrat to vote for you?
Okay, and I had this question a couple weeks ago. Somebody asked me, how do you reach out to this section of the community, or how do you reach out to these folks or to these folks? And I said, I don't. I don't reach out to anybody specifically. What we work on is opportunities. If I create something that allows business to grow or allows more people to work here in this state, those are opportunities. I don't care who gets it. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what gender you are. If you get the job, then I'm happy. So we're always working on opportunities. I'm going to move back to aerospace a little bit. That's a huge part of the Santa Clarita Valley and the Antelope Valley. Big jobs, good paying jobs. Without the incentives for the aerospace program, they move out. The second one we worked on was the film and tax credit. This started in 2009 when Governor Schwarzenegger was there, and everybody thought, well, he's just working on it because he was a movie star. Not so much, maybe a little, but he saw that movies and television was working outside of California. 20 years ago, would you have bet that they would have done $900 million of film in Louisiana? You wouldn't have. But last year, that's exactly what they did. So those film and tax credits was something that it wasn't a Republican idea, it wasn't a Democrat idea. We worked together and said, look, these are going to be opportunities for all of us. Now, luckily for Assemblyman Wilkin and myself, a lot of film is done right here. And so that was very beneficial. But we got co-authors on both sides to work this.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, Barbara Wilson from Valencia. My question specifically, because I do know that you are local, if you are elected, what is your plan to create jobs for mental health and a regional mental health center in the Antelope Valley,
Okay.
where you have 3 counties coming together?
Well, yes, ma'am. We have 2 in the 25th Congressional District. We have Ventura and we have LA. One of the things that's
But my question is specifically about Antelope Valley.
One of the things that's happened in California is Prop 63 funds have been taken away. They have. In the last 6 years, we have seen huge deficits. We've seen huge problems, and it just seemed like Prop 63 funds was a good way to grab some money and help out balancing the budget. I always opposed that. Look, the voters voted on that, and they voted on it because we had a need. Mental health was not being looked after in this state, still isn't. But when you raid those funds, then you're taking away what the centers can use, and that was not right. So in the state of California, you've got to keep the budget balanced, and you can't do it by taking funds away from what was supposed to go to that. Secondly, on jobs, I just met with a young lady today, and she works in child resource, and that's out in the Antelope Valley. And she works with children at risk, but she can only work with them if they are at risk. So she got a young lady who was 14 yesterday from the hospital who had cut herself. And she said, now I can work with this child. But it was hard to work with her when we knew she had a problem, but we couldn't do anything until she had actually done something. And I said, that's not right. What we should be doing is talking to the kids, going to the schools, and infiltrating this before they start doing bad things like cutting themselves.
Is that a signal? Yeah. Oh, okay.
His time is up.
Hi, Mr. Knight. My name is Greg Abrahamian. I live here in Santa Clarita.
I've met you.
Nice to see you again. My question is this. Illegal immigration is one of the biggest issues in our country. It threatens American workers, does a lot of negative things to Americans. And I was doing some research on your record so I can understand more about what your position is. And I came across this letter. You signed a letter. It says you strongly support federal comprehensive immigration reform. Now, federal comprehensive immigration reform, Americans understand that to be a euphemism for amnesty. Now, do you still support comprehensive immigration reform? And is there any way you would support the legalization of illegal aliens?
Okay. Well, I don't know why you think that's amnesty, but back in 1986, I didn't think that was a good plan. We did amnesty for 3.9 million people that were here illegally. I didn't think that was a good plan. President Reagan signed that, and the very next thing he said was, now that we've done this, we've got to strengthen the border. Since 1986 to now, we have used very little money on the border. We've done some upgrades, we've changed a couple things, but we haven't taken a commitment to the border. The very first thing I think anybody on either side of the aisle would believe is that we have to have a strong border, not a porous border, in order to help fix the immigration problem. I don't believe in an amnesty program.
What about legalization of illegal aliens?
I do believe that we have to fix immigration in this country. I don't want my son to come to me in 30 years, just like I'm doing to you right now, 30 years after amnesty, and saying, golly, I wish we'd fix this. Don't you want somebody that will talk about immigration, because I'll talk about it at length. And I don't think many Republicans will. They'll just say, shut down the border and kick everybody out. That's the playbook. That's the handbook. I've read it. I will talk to it at length. I've lived it. I've done it. I've seen how legal immigration doesn't
work. Will you legalize any illegal aliens under a comprehensive immigration reform?
Under a comprehensive reform, no.
So you'll take your name off that petition? Because you petitioned.
You can get back in line.
Next question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I think I'll let you take over the mic.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Max Morgan, Valencia. Earlier, Tony told me that he continues to advocate a U.S. military presence in the Middle East. We currently have 1,000 Special Forces advisors in Iraq. 4,000 of our nation's finest died in Iraq. We have trained 938,000 Iraqi soldiers who are still incapable of defending themselves. So my question to you is, having said all of that, do you advocate a continued U.S. military presence in the Middle East? If so, why? And what can we do that we haven't already tried and failed?
Okay. Well, I advocate that we do have to have a presence there. It's too volatile an area. It's too much of a tactical area that we would give up any presence in that arena. It's just too difficult that if something happens there and we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel, that we wouldn't have some presence in there. So I do advocate that we should have some presence there. I don't think that that means that we're going to continue with boots on the ground, that we're going to continue to have wars over there. I think that President Obama criticized President Bush so much about the Iraq war was that he said, you didn't build a coalition. Well, if we're going to build a coalition, then let's do that. Let's not say that Americans have to do 95% and the rest of the countries have to do 5%. If we really want a coalition and we really want to be part of the UN, then step up and help us out. If you don't want to be part of the UN, or if you don't want to engage when the rest of the UN is saying we should engage, then maybe we should look elsewhere. And that's why I think we need a presence there, because we are the leaders of the world. We are.
What presence? Advisors or boots on the ground,
well,
or both?
And I'll take a follow-up question. Advisors, to me, make a real problem. We saw it in Vietnam. We sent over advisors too quickly. AirCav had to come in. Too quickly, they were engaged. You can't go into a hostile area and...
Time's up. Sorry. Next question.
Hello. Thank you both for coming tonight. I'm Ellen Brokaw from Friendly Valley. And I want to bring up the subject of the violent weather we have. Just yesterday, we had record heat in Los Angeles, and this is September. We had flooding in the desert areas because of hurricanes coming up from the Mexico. I wonder if you're impressed by the change in the weather and the damage and destruction that's going on, today right here in Los Angeles area, and whether we could expect anything from you if you get to Washington as far as initiatives for instance, fossil fuel vehicle burning vehicles. What your support is about on that.
And I think that all revolves around what's happening with the air, what's happening with the water, and is the climate changing? Yeah, it's hot out there. 5 years ago, I was swimming on Halloween. It was hot then. So I'm not going to say that we're going through a cycle right now that is so much hotter than other cycles that we've gone through. But I will tell you what we can do as a government and what we should have done in California. What we should have done in California was follow a little bit of the lead of Texas. There was 2 routes we could have gone when it comes to renewable portfolio standards, when it comes to how are we going to get more non-fossil fuels here. Now, we all know that we're going to burn something for the next 100 years. We are. We're going to burn clean coal. We're going to burn natural gas. We are going to do that because the technology curve hasn't gone to that stage where you can turn these lights on when the sun's not up or when the wind's not blowing. So we haven't got to that technology stage. But here we mandated it, and we said you had to be 33% by 2020. Texas said we're going to incentivize you to do it. Texas has beat us to the 33% because they went out to businesses and they said, we're going to incentivize you to do it. So if you do it, you're going to get this. You're going to get these tax credits. You're going to get this. You're going to get this. They didn't say you had to do it. But here in California, we said you absolutely have to do it or we will penalize you. So I think there's 2 different schools of thought. One is...
Time. Good answer.
Hi, good evening, Senator Knight. My name is John Garzone. I'm from Saugus here in the Santa Clarita Valley. I wanted to ask you about SB 2444, which, if some people here in the audience don't know, was a bill to bar displays of the Confederate flag in California state museums and gift shops. Now, you were one of only 3 members of our state legislature to vote against it. I just want to know, what exactly was your reasons for voting against it? I think a lot of us consider hate speech, as symbolized by the Confederate flag, to be outside of our traditional First Amendment protections. So I wanted to know why you went against it and if you could talk about that.
Sure. So when the bill was written, it was way expansive. The Democrats and the Republicans both agreed there's no way that we can vote for this. It's unconstitutional. The second stage of the bill, when it was amended, still had constitutional issues. How this bill came about was a mother of an assemblyman walked through the gift shop in the state capitol and saw play money. And the play money said Confederate money on it. And so she said, there's no way we can have this. Let's write a bill. And so there was a bill, and people voted for it. But they forgot that there are shops up and down California that actually have private vendors in them. And they're state shops, but they have private vendors. And so I started thinking, if they have private vendors, there's going to be some constitutional issues there. And so I voted no. You're right. And I was one of only 3. If you look at my record, and maybe you have, you've seen that I voted no. I'm the only vote on several votes. We wanted to do a blueberry commission in California. I said no. We wanted to do many other things. I was the only no vote. So that's not indicative, but I have done that on several times. So since then, I've sent a letter to the governor, and I said, Governor, what if there was something that was hateful toward Jewish people or American Indians or another protected class? Oh, well, this bill wouldn't do anything. Why don't we create a policy? Doesn't have to go through the Constitution, doesn't have to do anything, and it'll fix everyone. I think they like that.
Thank you.
Hello, Senator Knight. I'm Jeff from Valencia. And
how many times tonight, Jeff?
Probably just this once.
Okay.
Now that you've heard the whole speech, so I want to ask you the same question. Would you support a constitutional amendment to repeal the Citizens United decision, or do you support the unlimited funds of corporate funds in our elections?
No, and I think that there are several things that Tony and I agree upon. I think that people need to know who's giving you money, and people need to know in a timely response. So if somebody's going to give me money, obviously, A, they want me to be the next congressman or whatever I'm running for, and B, they're willing to write a check in that effort. You need to know. If the Koch brothers are giving me $500,000, they can't. But if they were, you should know that the Koch brothers are billionaires. They're 2 of the richest people in the country, and they're giving me money over here in California. Why are they giving him money? So I think that a timely response, a timely notification to the people who are voting is the best way to go about this.
Okay, thank you.
Todd Hoover from Castaic. What will you do to prevent the Cemex mine from coming to Santa Clarita?
Yeah, the Cemex mine shouldn't come to Santa Clarita. I think that we've been working on this for 14 years. I don't think that we've seen any leadership in this. The city has been kind of placed on their own to fight this and say, look, we can win this, but we need some leadership. This shouldn't go another 14 years. We should fix this. Assemblyman Wilkin and I wrote a letter and sent it to the congressman and said, look, if you make the 14 freeway a defense asset, in essence, you will stop the trucks from using that, and you will shut down the Cemex mine. If anyone knows where the Cemex mine is, that will shut that down. The congressman didn't want to listen, and he didn't want to help out in that. Now, he is the chairman of Armed Services, so he could have pushed that through the committee right away, but he didn't. So we need some leadership to go up there and say, look, this has been going on for 14 years. It hasn't stopped. Let's fix this right now. And I'm committed to that, either on this plan or another plan.
Okay.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, Senator. I am Steve Petzold. I'm the chairman of Santa Claritans Against Measure S scams. Reminding you that Exhibit E, item number 5, bans political advertising behind Measure S. Are you prepared tonight to say that you oppose Measure S?
Well, no. I saved a lot of time on that one. What do you want?
Good.
I was
question.
running out on every one.
Okay, Steve, hi, this is Greg Abrahamian.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, how you doing? All right, so my question is back to this letter, the petition that you signed, along with 14 other California Republican assemblymen and senators. It petitions amnesty for illegal aliens. It says that you strongly support federal comprehensive immigration reform, and you call for full citizenship for illegal aliens. Now, my question is, and I'd like a specific answer, do you still call for full citizenship for illegal aliens, and do you still support comprehensive immigration reform?
In that letter, there is no pathway to citizenship.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
In that letter, there is no pathway to citizenship.
It says full citizenship. If you want to see it, I have it right here.
Bring it on up.
Okay. You asked for it.
No, after. You're taking up time for questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You
Okay.
can see him after.
Okay? No pathway to citizenship. If you're going to do a comprehensive immigration reform, then there has to be something that looks at how people become citizens. There has to be. Right now, in this country, we are using a system that is antiquated. If you are a doctor,
no,
if you are
the letter says you call for full citizenship. Do you still call for full citizenship for illegal aliens?
Let him answer the question.
You're still filming? It's good. If you don't do that by a legal immigration process, then you're not fixing the system.
So you support a legal immigration process for full citizenship. That's what you signed. I'm asking, do you still support it?
I still support that we should have some sort of immigration reform, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you want illegal aliens to take American jobs.
Next, he's answered the question, I believe. And with time to spare. Thank you.
Wow. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Dr. Francis Rigler. I practice in Palmdale, and I would like to know, what is your position on Proposition 46?
Okay. 46 is the, help me out, it's the micro one?
That's the one to quote-unquote reform micro, yes.
Yeah. So I think micro is still at $250,000. It should stay at $250,000. The trial attorneys are pushing something that will hurt us with our medical premiums. They don't necessarily know that because they'll make some money off it. But micro has been set at $250,000 for a very long time. It has been working. I don't support it going up to $1 million or $1.2 million. I think it's at the right level.
Next question.
Yes, Senator Knight, Don Robinson from Newhall. Would you support, when elected to Congress, would you support a carbon tax on all carbon, at the wellhead, wherever it comes into being,
No.
refundable?
No. Oh, that's good.
Mike Cruz from Canyon Country. Once again, do you support or oppose the FCC's proposed changes to net neutrality?
I think that the internet should be clean, clear, and everyone should be able to use it. It is correct right now. I think that when we muddle with the internet and we let other countries muddle with the internet, that's when we are going to go down that road that is going to hurt it for everyone. The internet's working really well. It really is. I'm not a big fan of it, of all of the things that people say about me, but
Get in line. No.
Yeah.
Get in line. Very good.
But it works.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
I said one.
It's a different question.
Oh, okay. All right.
Jeff from Valencia. What would you do about the so-called tax inversions that are happening now, where companies are kind of taking off out of the country and then basically not paying taxes here, but still operating mostly on American dollars? How would you fix that?
Well, you've got to have a buy-in to the country, and no matter what, if it's immigration, which I'm sure I'll get another question in 2 people, or if it's companies, you have to have a buy-in to the country. Right now, companies are seeing that if I go overseas, in some instances, I can make more money. I can do this, I can do that. But what we're finding out in the last few years is China and India and several other countries are kind of going through an industrial revolution. And with that, even in Mexico is doing that. In that, they're seeing that wages are going up. They're not paying people 28 cents an hour. The wages are going up. The health and the benefits are going up. And some of these companies are coming back. We just had a major company come back from Mexico to California and said, well, now California looks better to us, and we can live in California, so we're back. So the country's always got to look at how do we keep businesses here, and the number one thing is if you can make money, businesses like you. They just want to make money, morally and ethically. But the country hasn't done everything that they should, especially with incentives, to keep them here.
So what would you do to keep them here?
Well, you've got to do that, just like we did in California. The reason the film and movie making was leaving California was Clint Eastwood said it best. I filmed Gran Torino in Michigan. I got 43 cents tax credit per dollar to film here. I'm going to film here every movie.
All right.
Patty Sulpizia from the Valencia area of Santa Clarita. Logical follow-up question to Mr. Petzold regarding Measure S, Santa Clarita Measure S. Mr. Petzold asked if you're prepared to oppose Measure S now. So please tell us where you line up on Measure S.
Okay, well, I think the Measure S, look, we're going to go through this process here in the election. But Measure S went through a city council process. They did. And we're talking about, and I know Steve will shake his head when I say this, but 118 faces, am I close? Something like that. We're talking about 118 faces. Some of them were in these right-of-ways for a very long time. None of them are in Valencia because that was the master plan community and they didn't allow them. And then we're going to change those to the 3 digital signs on the freeway. My only problem with the billboard signs was, what about the local business that might be advertising on there that they don't get their traffic through the highway? They get it going down Railroad or they get it going down one of the other streets that have the billboards. So that was the problem. But I understand what the city council did and I understand what the process they went through. So I think the Measure S will work its way out. I know that about 11,000 people signed that petition.
18,000.
Okay, how many were?
Over 11,000 registered
Okay,
voters.
so 11,000. If you sign from Vermont, I'm not going to count you.
Pardon?
It's upside down.
2,000 to 3 upside down.
Okay. So 11,000 people signed it. If those 11,000 people...
11,000 verified registered voters.
If they all vote, you win.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah, Greg Abrahamian,
Hi,
Santa
Greg.
Clarita. Hi. Okay, so back to your amnesty petition that you signed. You've called for full citizenship for illegal aliens. Now, once the illegal aliens get full citizenship, how is that going to help the millions of unemployed Americans once the illegal aliens have full access to jobs? Tens of millions of illegal aliens.
Okay. If we're going to talk about immigration, let's talk about it. Do you want somebody to sit down at the table and say, close down the border and kick everybody out?
That's a false argument.
Okay. Or do you want somebody to sit down to the table and say, let's fix immigration? Immigration reform. Immigration
It's
reform.
not a debate. Let him answer the question.
Immigration reform is going to come from the legal standpoint. It really is. And look, if you work a pipeline, then you can fit it so only so many people get through. No matter how many people want to get through, if you fit that pipeline to do so many things, only so many people will do it. And I'll give you an example. In Florida, they did CCW legislation, and they changed that state from a may issue to a shall issue when it comes to concealable weapons. And everybody yelled and screamed and said, you know what? That's going to give all these weapons to everybody. And it's going to hurt.
How is that going to help unemployed
Hang on, I'm getting my
American
example.
workers?
I get to answer.
Let him answer his
I get to answer.
question.
And they said, you know what, this is going to hurt everybody. 2 million people applied for CCWs. 2 million people were going to have weapons. No, 40,000 people got CCWs. 40,000 people out of 2 million. So you can do the same thing with immigration. If immigration, you make it so there's a process. So if you come from Sweden or Mexico or wherever,
about unemployed Americans.
hang on, if you come from there and you want to come to America like most your relatives did, then there is a process. But the process is so
You didn't
hard.
answer anything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Greg. I'll see you next time.
Senator Knight, Dwayne Hardy, Saugus. How can we get our soldier out of prison in Mexico?
Yeah. Good question. That soldier should come home. Look, if you do something in another country and you break their laws, then there is some sort of penalty there. What's happening? What's happening with this soldier down there is nothing more than politics. That's what's being held, is that soldier for politics. If they want to have a real debate, and if the administration wants to have a real debate about releasing this soldier back to America, I think that he will be on the next train out. What has happened in California is several legislators have asked for the release of this soldier. We haven't heard anything back from the administration. The administration has been very silent on this issue. So I think that there's got to be better leadership on that. If one of ours is down there in prison, and we don't think that they should, or we don't think that they should be down there, we should take an active role to dealing with that government. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Joy Hayek. I would like your opinion on the Second Amendment.
Okay. Well, my very first bill I wrote was AB 357. That wasn't lucky that I got that number. I picked it because that bill said we're going to turn California from a may-issue state to a shall-issue state. Now, since then, I believe I'm the only legislator that's carried a gun piece of legislation every year since then. Now, I haven't checked them all, but I believe I'm the only one. All of mine revolve around CCW legislation. We've passed one. It had to do with peace officers that had lost their city, had lost their charter, and there was no way for their ID cards to be renewed and no way for them to maintain their CCWs. So we passed a piece of legislation that said you don't have to have a city. You can go to the next door county and get that process. Now, some people would say, well, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. That was a CCW piece of legislation that was passed in California. That's a tough thing to do. California is not real good on guns, not at all. So that kind of opens the door for the next section and the next section. And before you know it, maybe we have some real gun comprehensive legislation in California that doesn't have to do with taking your guns away, but has to do with punishing criminals and making sure that we can live in a just society where people can own guns. I own guns. I'm not a hunter, but I am a shooter, and I am a collector of some sorts. And those people are being treated as the criminals here in California. So I'm pretty doggone good with them.
We'll keep it quick. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, would you support or not support?
Okay, give me a little help on this.
It's right now it's an economic plan to basically join a coalition of an economic coalition in the southeastern or South Pacific, Malaysia, Mexico, Vietnam. It's an economic trade agreement. Would you support or would you not support that?
I'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Mazem Chaudhary from Saugus, a pharmacist and business owner. I'm a first-generation immigrant, proud American, living in the safest country in the world, respect human rights. I worked hard, created hundreds of jobs for my community. My questions, what is your thoughts about the Multicultural Activity Center, and do you support and want to help to create one?
Okay, well, Multicultural Center should probably be in just about any city. It really should. You don't walk through a city and see 100 people that look just like you. This is America. Nobody knows what an American looks like. They don't. So it is a diverse country, and that's one of the great things that we've got here in America. And we are going through Hispanic Heritage Month right now, and Mexico had their Independence Day yesterday. Chile's got theirs tomorrow, just for all of you Jeopardy buffs. I got that from an inside source. So yeah, I think that, understanding that I don't look like you, you don't look like me, and you might have grown up differently, that's why I like public education. I like my sons to go into public education and say, I have to deal with people that are shorter or taller or uglier or any of these things. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what life is. When you go to a job, you might have to deal with somebody you don't like, or grew up very rich or very poor. Well, public education helps us with that. Cities can help us with that. Cities can do that and make sure that everybody feels like this is home.
That ends the second half, right?
Okay.